And what I mean by blowback is, and I would invite you to, if you have any examples, share your perspective. You know, somewhere India is experimenting with both today, or emerging world. Bangladesh, India, you know, Grameen Bank and everyone, experimenting with both today. And will have to show a direction to the rest of the world very, very soon. For example, this pancake-like world and the Grameen world like examples which have understood the shallowness of this fulfillment through consumption model in which the Western world has been trapped in. The last 5 generations have been trapped in. You feel fulfilled if you consume a lot. So go consume a new car, go consume a new Louis Vuitton bag, and you feel fulfilled. And you realize once you consumed it, that you don't feel fulfilled. That's one.
Okay,
so therefore there are these models to transitional leaders. Do you see that leadership coming from those worlds and those cultures too for the world? Because they've always understood this. Number 2, while we are learning to be pyramidical like you, there are examples.
No, pancake, yeah, if I'm pyramid, learn to be pancake.
You know, India is also trying to learn
to
be like pyramid.
Yeah,
so both worlds coexist there.
Yeah.
So that's my next question.
Right.
The next speaker, I'm sure, is going to be talking about perking up consumption and removing barriers to consumption. We are doing that. And there is a nano that gets produced there, a car for 1,700 euros. And why is it happening there? Because our reference points are truly radical. Why would Europe want to produce a car for 1,700 euros? You have enough people, everyone can afford a car for 6,000 euros. We can, because our reference points are radical. So, do you see that world showing directions in both directions to be a better pyramid and to be a better pancake?
Sure. Good. The great question at the end. Both good questions. The answer to that is yes. I certainly think that leaders of the pancake world will come from everywhere. And I believe that the pyramid model was very much a Western concept. I mean, we drove the Industrial Revolution, first of all around the Atlantic, and then the Techo Revolution started out in the Pacific on the West Coast. But it's a westernized, Western concept. We are now in a multipolar world. I was brought up in a bipolar, America and Russia. Then I went into a single polar, which was America, end of history. And now I'm in a multipolar world, which is shared between America, Europe, India, China, increasingly Latin America. A multipolar world, against the background of what I've been talking about, leaders will come from everywhere. And you know, hey, India had Gandhi, you know, one of my other heroes, who always said the means is the end in the making. I'm convinced the idea that somehow India and China is going to go through our similar developmental model, I don't believe. Interestingly, China now, who, you know, is pushing ahead and has a very authoritarian structure, they've suddenly revalued their own culture, and China heritage is going for masses of money. So I don't believe that you will just all follow the pyramid. And if you do, we're finished.
Hello. My name is Jakob Jaskov from Value. I must say I completely disagree with you what you have told us. Not that we are that this is happening, but that we are stopping there. Because we are not stopping at this flat world. We are again entering a new pyramidic world. If you look at the internet, for example, how many main sites are there where people stop? There are fewer and fewer. We have Google, a few others.
eBay, Amazon, Google.
If you look at Wikipedia, the prime example of decentralization, it's being centralized.
Now,
and of course, you cannot just say, okay, we are going out into this open world without having centralization again.
Well, I disagree. Yeah, thank you. I love people who disagree. I may not sound as if I do, but I do. That's a massively interesting debate. Personally, now I don't agree with you. You're quite right. The web is constantly a battle between freedom and control. There was a point when it was almost lost when Microsoft became the ace controller and then didn't. If you look at just the film industry and Napster came and everybody could download for free because the web is a social, a cultural and economic revolution and it's in the making all the time. So then Napster got nailed on the head with the top American lawyers, didn't stand a chance. So what happened? The web reinvented itself and it went somewhere else even more invisible. So I think, whereas there will always be an attempt to hierarchy, and there will be an attempt to centralise. I do not believe that, I believe ultimately the web will be a leveller because it's constantly reinventing itself. The more the power tries to get it, the more it reinvents itself. Something I would advise you, interestingly, the BBC at the moment, I'm sure you can doubt, is doing a fantastic 4-part series on the web and the virtual world, and the whole discussion around control and power, freedom, levelling, etc. See if you can tap into that. But it's still an issue, I agree. It could still go. But your assumption that ultimately human nature always needs hierarchies, I don't know.
No centralization, not hierarchy.
Or even centralisation. Oh, and can I just say one thing, ladies and gentlemen, this is important. My pyramidistic pancake, of course it's not going to be like that. It's a framework. It's a simple framework to enable us to think differently. It will not be that. It will be a mix of many things. And this is...
Sorry, we have time for one more.
Uh-oh.
Go ahead, please.
I'd love to discuss with you afterwards, because I am with you and with this other gentleman before. I will also argue that what you were presenting today is not a fruit of evolution over time, but it has been a fight in humankind from the beginning.
Yeah.
I would say Christianity and the Christian Revolution have to do with this flat world. I would say communism has to do with this flat world. I think it has been a dilemma. I think probably the most frustrating part of listening to you today is that, again, you put forward something that we all feel that probably is true, but you don't bring any real solutions. And many of the solutions you were bringing up, to me, it sounded like what Karl Marx was saying in the 19th century, and even what Christ was saying in the first century. So, I mean, I think still somebody has to come out, and I think part of the problem is that you were not dealing with the real issue. And I want to ask a very specific question, which I think it's a very small part of the real issue, which is economics, it's capital, and it's how money flows, and it comes back to human motivation. But I mean, you were talking, I wanted a very specific question on the co-creation, which I completely agree with you. And I wanted to hear your point of view on revenue models for co-creation, and whether you see successful examples of through co-creation, other than the standard ones, which is right now the iPads and whatever, really good effective revenue models which are creating more wealth, whatever that involved in that co-creation.
So, yeah, I'd just like to take, fine, thank you, thanks for the question. I'd like to take a step back there. Agreeing or disagreeing is fantastic. I mean, that's exactly what I'm trying to do, is just stimulate us to think differently. The fact that I'm not being very concrete with solutions is because, you know, you'd have to take a specific... I don't want details here. I'm opening on a bigger picture. I did give, I think, quite a lot of indications. You know, I talked about embracing new narratives and new stories. It is time to storytell again, and to use that as a process to guide us and inspire us into doing different things. I talked about decentralizing innovation, decentralizing strategy, and decentralizing design. I talked about moving complexity to where it is in the front lines and empowering those people. So I did actually quite a lot of indications, I believe. Now, concerning revenues and co-creation, we are, and what did I say? We're in a constant process of learning experimentation. At Philips Design, we've done several, on Framework 6 with the EU, we've done several big projects on co-creation around food, with Unilever, other players, universities, as a co-creative group, thinking about the food issue. And we learnt there many different methods, approaches, dialogue. So you're not suddenly going to go from A to B. It will be a learning process. And it's difficult because we still are in the pyramid world, so ultimately we're wanting to say, all right, we're all co-creative, but we'd like to have a bigger piece of the pie. Because, you know, it is a learning process. We've got to start moving forward in that direction. Revenue streams, the business models behind co-creation, you know, I need better people than me to solve that. I do know, and I did indicate, that the corporate models must change. So, for example, there's a clever guy in Italy now at the Bocconi, a business school, working on alternative corporate models, low liability companies, that allow you to maximise innovation in that, and mission, in that you have shareholders, but those shareholders accept a longer term and a lower, their returns are capped. You've got to enter into the realisation, I think, and you've got to make a decision, and this is where the courage is, that I don't want my money to be maximised. I want it to go, I want some returns, but those returns must be as much as social as they are a personal reward. So those are some of the debates that are going on.
So we going to have to end it there, but I think we can continue on offline. Thank you so much.
Thank you.